That last quick test video that I posted led to some interesting discussions in the comments section of the video, which led to me thinking a lot about the process of playtesting in general and how playtesting differs from playing, and how sharing playtests can be risky, especially when I share playtests with undesirable outcomes for the hero. It runs the risk of making the game look broken. I think if this channel wasn't completely devoted to the process of making stuff, I probably wouldn't share any playtest videos. But since this channel is really a creative diary, I like to just kind of put it all up there. It generates interesting discussion. So I thought it would be fun to go through that same battle with the Rat King and his 6-pack of rats and play it out with a couple different hero classes, each configured in multiple ways, just to see how this battle could play out under various circumstances, because I want to shed some light on the type of decision space that exists in this game that might not be reflected in a single playthrough, especially one with an undesirable outcome. Let's say that we initially equipped this warrior with a great sword instead of a short sword. Now we're going to do something kind of interesting. The rules specifically state that if you want to adjust the difficulty of the game, all you have to do is start with a power or skill upgrade. So we're going to configure this warrior with a starting upgrade of Sword Master. And this isn't a handicap or a hack or a cheat. This is a standard rule. So I think one change that I might make based on discussions I had after the last video and based on my own playtesting is that if you're playing true solo, you don't have any backup, you don't have any other heroes, you don't have a cleric to heal you. It may just be that the standard protocol is start with one upgrade. And I think that's totally legit. I think that's a great way to balance the game for true solo. So the great sword hits 2 members for each hit. So every time I hit a Psycho Rat, I'm hitting 2 Psycho Rats. So you can see how much more powerful the warrior is now with the great sword being a sword master. So he rolls a 6. He needed a 9 or greater, and he got a 6 plus his might of 6 is 12. So he hits the Psycho Rats, which means he hits 2 Psycho Rats. So after we finish combat, we're going to remove 2 of these Psycho Rats from play. But until the combat is completely finished, they still count. So they needed a 5 or less, plus 3 for each additional Psycho Rat. There's 5 additional Psycho Rats. So they needed 20 or less. They definitely hit the hero. They do, this is a 1d3, so they do 3 plus 5 damage. That's 8 damage, minus 1 for the helmet. So 7 damage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But we removed 2 Psycho Rats because he killed 2 with his great sword, being a sword master. And now we go on to the monster phase, and the Psycho Rats attack the hero. Combat plays out the exact same way, regardless of who's attacking who. So once again, we roll a 6, plus his might of 6 is 12. We needed a 9 or greater. So once again, the hero hits the Psycho Rats, and he's going to defeat 2 more Psycho Rats. Now the Psycho Rats needed a 5 or less, plus 3 for each additional Psycho Rat, but now there's only 3 additional Psycho Rats because the stack is 4 high. So 3 times 3 is 9, plus 5 is 14, and the combat result was 12, so they do hit the warrior. So they do, that's a 1d3, so that's 1 point of damage is 4. So they do 4 damage to the hero, 1, 2, 3, 4. Our hero is down to 1 health point, but 2 more Psycho Rats are gone. So now it's just the hero against 2 Psycho Rats. We do our combat roll. We roll a 4, plus his might of 6 is 10. He only needed a 9, so he's going to kill these 2 remaining Psycho Rats. These Psycho Rats are going to be dead at the end of this combat round, but we need to see if they hit him. They needed a 5 or less, plus 3 for each additional psycho rat. There's only one additional psycho rat now, so they need an 8 or less. The combat result was 10, so now they miss completely. So the warrior with the great sword and a swordmaster upgrade was able to defeat 6 psycho rats. He's down to 1 health, but he can use his remaining 3 meat to regain 3 health, 1, 2, 3, over the course of the next 3 turns. Next, let's run through the same scenario with the rogue. How would the rogue deal with 6 psycho rats? The rogue's starting item, he starts with caltrops, lockpick, tools, rope, throwing dagger. We've got our rope in the medium slot. This stove slot can hold 2 light items, so it's holding the caltrops. The lockpick tool, let's actually move the caltrops to this hand, just in case we need them. He's got his throwing dagger in this hand, and he has 10 health. So how on earth is the rogue gonna deal with 6 psycho rats? What I would do if I were playing the rogue I would perform a sneak. So this is a colonnaded room. He needs to sneak basically past this orthogonal line. So the rogue would be like, ooh, I hear scampering. I'm gonna sneak with great intention. 1, 2. So he moves 2 spaces past the scamper. And we can see here that on a sneak, we do a stealth test, and the challenge rating is the total spaces moved times 2. So we moved 2 spaces, we double that. Challenge rating 4 on a sneak test. He has a stealth of 5, so we don't even need to roll because 5 plus anything is going to be greater than the challenge rating of 4. So he got an 8 on his stealth test. He sneaks past the scamper. They do not alert, but they do have this action, which means they move 1 space toward the nearest terminus tile. Right now, there is no terminus tile in play, so they would stay put. But let's say there was a terminus tile in play, and this scamper was going to move 1 space toward it, then they would alert on their next turn, and all of a sudden he would be facing 6 psycho rats. So what he could do to make sure that he stays out of line of sight even after his turn is over, he could do this. He could do a sneak that looks more like this. 1, 2, 3. So he moved 3 spaces. Times 2 is 6. So he needs to do a stealth test with a challenge rating 6. He has a stealth of 5, plus 3 is 8. So when they move toward their terminus tile on the next turn, they would move here. So a lot of times the rogue won't even have to deal with warnings. He can sneak past them. All right, now let's try out the mage. What would the mage do in this situation? So we've got our mage configured with basic starting setup. He's got his spellbook equipped. He's wearing a magic cloak. He has a magic staff stowed, and he has a potion stowed. So there are a couple things that the mage could do. The mage could cast the Fade spell. That's fairly low cost, 1d3 will to cast it. And it increases his stealth to 6 until he takes damage or casts another spell. So at that point, he could easily sneak right past this scamper and not have to deal with it. But let's just say he's in a fighting mood. The mage could just confront the scamper. He's exposed. The scamper's alerted. So now the mage is face to face with a stack of 6 psycho rats. And he is probably going to need a very powerful spell here. So we look at these 3rd tier spells, challenge rating 8. So he's not guaranteed to cast it, but he's going to try to cast Fireball. So the first thing we need to do is subtract our casting cost. So 1d3 plus 3 health damage. All right, so that's 4. It's going to cost him 4 health to cast this spell. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we have to do a knowledge test. His knowledge is 6, plus 4 is 10. So he passed the knowledge test, successfully cast the spell, and it travels in an orthogonal line from the caster until it hits solid wall, destroying all counters in its path, including heroes and monsters, exception giant monsters. So he casts this fireball. So the mage is able to take out the entire pack of Psycho Rats with a single fireball spell at the cost of half of his health. So that's the trade-off. 1, 2, 3, 4, back up to their max of 8. This potion would now be empty, so we would flip it over like that. And now it can be used to brew concoctions. It's an ingredient. It's negligible weight, so we can throw it over here in our extra slot. All right, now for fun, let's say we start the mage with the seer upgrade. So with the seer upgrade, we get the crystal ball for free, and it also unlocks the enhanced crystal ball powers. The crystal ball is two-handed, so let's say he equips the crystal ball. Right now, the crystal ball allows the mage to look at the map deck tiles and even change the future by swapping map deck tiles. The crystal ball also allows the mage to look at the discovery counters and swap 2 of them. But one of the viewers of the channel suggested that maybe the crystal ball could let you peek at warnings too, and I think that's a great idea. So I am going to add that to the mage's seer upgrade. So in that case, the mage could simply use the crystal ball right now to take a peek at this and know that this is the Rat King, and then he would simply go the other way or decide, you know, if he wants to spend the energy to cast Fireball. So the crystal ball can be very powerful. So I hope this sheds some light on how a single undesirable outcome can misrepresent the decision space of a game like this. A video like this may be even more useful than just straight playthroughs in terms of testing. As I play through with all these different configurations, and as I play through with upgrades, I see that it quickly becomes possible to take on huge groups of monsters. If I would have pandered to my own knee-jerk reaction when my warrior was easily defeated by the 6-pack of Psycho Rats, I might have gone through and changed the rules for the Psycho Rats and ended up making the game too easy. Because once you start piling on more upgrades, these heroes are going to become very powerful. You know, even the mage with no upgrades was easily able to defeat the Psycho Rats. He took quite a bit of health damage, and he would have been compromised for the rest of the game. You know, if you had 2 or 3 heroes dealing with a pack of Psycho Rats, then that completely changes the dynamic too. I think even 2 heroes with 0 upgrades, there's all kinds of different strategies they could employ, and there's different ways they could play off of each other's strengths. Many, many different ways to skin a cat or skin a rat here.